The crystal chamber hummed with ancient energy as High Magister Zephyros traced the final symbols in the air. Purple light danced between his 6 fingers, each movement precise and calculated. Around him, the Council of Veltar watched in reverent silence. Today would mark their greatest triumph, the summoning of docile servants from a primitive world to aid in their endless war against the savage Korthak Empire. The readings are perfect, High Magister, whispered Aid Nexus, her elongated skull bobbing as she consulted the floating data screens. The target world shows minimal technological advancement. Stone tools, basic agriculture. Their life force signatures indicate a peaceful, compliant species. Zephyros nodded, his purple skin glistening with concentration. The Veltar had perfected this ritual over millennia. They would reach across the void, select a few dozen specimens from a backward world, and transport them here to serve as laborers and foot soldiers. The summoned beings always adapted quickly, grateful for the advanced technology and purpose the Veltar provided. Begin the final sequence, Zephyros commanded. The other council members raised their hands, channeling their collective power into the summoning circle carved into the chamber floor. The crystal formations around the room pulsed brighter, responding to their combined will. The portal sparked to life, a swirling vortex of silver and blue that tore through the fabric of space itself. Through its depths, they glimpsed their target, a blue-green world orbiting a yellow star, exactly as their long-range scans had indicated. Primitive, defenseless, perfect. I see them, Aid Nexus reported, her voice filled with excitement. Multiple clusters of the bipedal creatures. They appear to be engaged in some form of territorial dispute. How wonderfully aggressive for future soldiers. The summoning beam lanced across space, seeking suitable specimens. The Veltar had learned to target beings during moments of high stress. It made the transition easier somehow, as if the subjects were already primed for displacement. The beam found its targets, several dozen humans caught in various conflicts across their world. Captain Sarah Martinez had been pinned down behind a concrete barrier for 3 hours, Taliban rounds whistling overhead. Her squad was running low on ammunition, and extraction seemed impossible. Then, the world exploded in silver light. Master Sergeant David Thompson was breaching a door in Fallujah when reality bent around him. One moment he was kicking in timber, the next he was floating in space itself. Dr. Elena Vasquez was treating wounded civilians in a field hospital in Syria when the light took her, along with her entire medical team. Across Earth, the summoning beam gathered its specimens, soldiers, medics, engineers, pilots, all humans caught in moments of intense combat or crisis. But the Veltar's scanning technology, designed for detecting primitive civilizations, had missed several crucial details about this particular species. The first humans materialized in the crystal chamber with a flash of displaced air. Instead of the confused, cowering primitives the Veltar expected, 37 very angry, very well-trained human warriors appeared in perfect tactical formation. Captain Martinez hit the ground rolling, her rifle already up and scanning for threats. Contact front. Unknown hostiles. Take cover and assess. The humans moved with mechanical precision. Within seconds, they had formed a defensive perimeter, weapons trained on the startled Veltar Council. Their primitive projectile weapons might have seemed laughable to an advanced civilization, but the Veltar had summoned them fully equipped, and humans brought far more than just guns to any fight. What in the name of the Seven Suns? Zephyros began, then stopped as he found himself staring down the barrel of an M4 carbine. Don't move, Martinez barked. Anyone speaks without permission, you die? Weapons visible. Drop them now. The Veltar Council froze. In 10,000 years of summoning, nothing like this had ever happened. Their specimens were supposed to be grateful, confused, easily controlled. These beings radiated lethal competence and barely restrained violence. Dr. Vasquez was already moving through the group, conducting rapid medical assessments. Sarah, we've got 37 personnel, all conscious, no apparent injuries from transport. Atmosphere is breathable, gravity feels standard. We're in some kind of advanced facility. Staff Sergeant Kevin Chun, their demolitions expert, was studying the crystal formations with professional interest. These walls, I've never seen architecture like this. But those crystals are definitely some kind of power source. Big ones. I could level this place with what's in my pack. Zephyros tried to activate the compliance protocols built into the summoning spell, sending waves of mental influence toward the humans. On previous subjects, this would have induced immediate calm and obedience. The humans didn't even blink. High Magister, Nexus whispered urgently. The mental conditioning isn't working. Their neural patterns are resistant, unusually complex. Captain Martinez kept her weapon trained on Zephyros while processing the situation. 30 years of military experience had taught her to adapt quickly to impossible circumstances. Vasquez, what's your assessment of our hosts? The doctor observed the Veltar carefully. Humanoid, but clearly non-human. Advanced technology. The one in the fancy robes seems to be in charge. They're afraid of us, which suggests they weren't expecting resistance. Outstanding. Martinez's voice carried the cold satisfaction of a professional soldier recognizing an exploitable weakness. You, she said, addressing Zephyros directly. I don't know what you expected when you brought us here, but I guarantee it wasn't this. You're going to explain exactly where we are and how we get home. Now, the High Magister's training as a diplomat kicked in despite his shock. Honored warriors, please, there has been a misunderstanding. You have been chosen to serve the glorious Veltar Empire in our righteous war against. Wrong answer. Martinez cut him off. Chun, show our friend what happens to people who kidnap American soldiers. The demolitions expert grinned and pulled out a small shaped charge, placing it against the nearest crystal formation. The Veltar Council recoiled in horror. Those crystals powered their entire facility. Wait, Zephyros cried. You don't understand. This is a great honor. You have been selected to fight alongside the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Sergeant Thompson laughed grimly. Advanced civilization? You purple freaks just picked a fight with the United States military. Do you have any idea how badly that tends to end for the other side? The humans began spreading out, securing the chamber with practiced efficiency. They had been summoned as primitive specimens, but what the Veltar had actually acquired was something far more dangerous. Professional soldiers from a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history perfecting the art of warfare. Corporal Lisa Park, a communications specialist, was already examining the Veltar technology. Captain, their systems are definitely more advanced than ours, but the interfaces seem functional. Give me 10 minutes, and I might be able to establish external comms. Do it, Martinez ordered. Rodriguez, Patel, secure those exits. Williams, start documenting everything. We're going to need intel when we get home. The Veltar watched in growing amazement as the humans transformed their sacred summoning chamber into a military command post. These weren't primitive beings at all. They were something the Veltar had never encountered before. High Magister, Nexus whispered urgently. We need to contact the overseers immediately. This situation is beyond our protocols. But Zephyros was watching Captain Martinez coordinate her people with crisp, efficient commands. Despite himself, he was impressed. The reports from their target world had indicated a species barely beyond stone tools. Yet these beings moved with the confidence of apex predators. Tell me, Zephyros said carefully, what manner of world produces such capable individuals? Martinez looked at him with the steady gaze of someone who had seen too much combat to be impressed by fancy crystals and purple skin. Earth. And you just made the mistake of taking us away from it against our will. That's something my people tend to take very personally. Dr. Vasquez approached the High Magister with clinical interest. Your species, how long have you been conducting these summoning operations? Millennia, Zephyros replied automatically. We have brought countless species to serve the Empire. All have found purpose and prosperity under Veltar guidance. All of them? Martinez asked quietly. Yes, of course. The ritual selects only the most suitable candidates from primitive worlds. Those who can best adapt to advanced civilization. The humans exchanged glances. Something cold passed between them. The recognition of a truth that their captors hadn't yet grasped. So you've been kidnapping people from their homes for thousands of years, Sergeant Thompson stated. Enslaving them. Making them fight your wars. Not enslaving. Zephyros protested. Elevating. We provide technology, purpose, a cause greater than their primitive existence. And if they refuse? Dr. Vasquez asked. The High Magister hesitated. In truth, refusal had never been an option. The mental conditioning ensured compliance. I see, Martinez said softly. Well, that's going to be a problem. Because humans don't respond well to slavery. We have this funny habit of fighting back. Hard. She gestured to her people, who were now efficiently cataloging every piece of Veltar technology in sight. You wanted warriors for your war? Congratulations. You just got them. But we don't fight for anyone else's cause except our own. And right now, our cause is getting home. Corporal Park looked up from the alien console she was examining. Captain, I'm picking up massive energy readings throughout this facility. Whatever they use for power, there's a lot of it. And the system architecture, it's distributed. Vulnerable to cascade failures if you hit the right nodes. Chun grinned and patted his explosive charges. Sounds like a party. The Veltar Council was beginning to understand that they had made a catastrophic error. These weren't primitive beings who could be molded and controlled. They were something far more dangerous. A species that had spent millennia refining the sciences of destruction and resistance. Perhaps, Zephyros said desperately, we can reach an accommodation. Return you to your world in exchange for no accommodation. Martinez cut him off. First, you're going to tell us everything about your little empire. Every world you've raided, every species you've enslaved. Then, you're going to help us contact them. Because I have a feeling they might be very interested in learning that their gods can bleed. The High Magister stared at her in growing horror. The human female spoke with the calm certainty of someone accustomed to making the impossible happen through sheer, relentless will. You cannot possibly comprehend the forces you would be challenging, he whispered. The Veltar Empire spans 1,000 worlds. Our military might is about to learn why humans earned the nickname Space Orcs, Sergeant Thompson interrupted with a wolfish grin. Except we're not orcs. We're something worse. We're humans. And you just pissed us off. Outside the crystal chamber, alarms began to wail as the Veltar facility's automated systems detected the presence of unregistered weapons and unauthorized access to secured systems. But the humans had already anticipated this. Security response incoming, Park reported calmly. Looks like they're trying to activate some kind of containment protocol. Chun, Martinez asked. Say the word, Captain. She looked around the chamber one more time, calculating angles and exit strategies. 37 humans against an interstellar empire. The odds were impossible. She smiled. Light it up. The explosion that followed would be remembered in Veltar history as the moment everything changed. The moment they learned that some prey, when cornered, revealed themselves to be predators instead. As the crystal chamber erupted in fire and the humans fought their way deeper into the facility, the Veltar overseers received their first reports of the disaster. Reading them, they felt something their species hadn't experienced in millennia, fear. They had tried to summon servants. Instead, they had brought humanity to their doorstep. And humanity, they were about to discover, was very good at making friends with other people's enemies. The Veltar security forces arrived to find their crystal chamber transformed into a smoking crater. Emergency lights cast eerie shadows through the corridors as automated systems struggled to contain the damage. But the humans were already gone, vanished into the facility's maintenance tunnels like ghosts. Captain Martinez led her team through the narrow passages with practiced stealth. Staff Sergeant Chin's demolition charges had done more than destroy the summoning chamber. They had opened access to the facility's infrastructure level. Here, among the humming machinery that powered the complex, the humans found something even more valuable than weapons: information. Dr. Vasquez knelt beside a wounded alien they had encountered, a maintenance worker caught in the explosion's aftermath. Unlike the arrogant Veltar council members, this being seemed different. Smaller, with gray skin instead of purple, and bearing what looked like shackles around its wrists. Easy there, she murmured in soothing tones as she applied field dressings to the creature's injuries. We're not going to hurt you. The being looked up at her with large, fearful eyes. When it spoke, its words came through a translation device attached to its collar, clearly more advanced than what the Veltar had been using in the chamber above. You are not Veltar, it whispered in amazement. But how did you resist the mind chains? How did you fight back? Martinez crouched down beside the doctor. What mind chains? The summoning spell, the creature explained weakly. It binds the will, makes us compliant. All who are brought here become servants, cannot think of rebellion. But you destroyed the sacred chamber. Impossible. The humans exchanged grim looks. More confirmation of what they had suspected. This wasn't the first time the Veltar had conducted mass kidnapping operations. What's your name? Dr. Vasquez asked gently. Crix of the Broken Shore, the being replied. Once a free hunter of the Mordak tribes. Now maintenance slave of Sector 7. How long have you been here, Crix? 17 cycles of the twin moons. My world, they took 50 of our strongest warriors. Said we were chosen for great honor. Instead, we work their machines until we die. Sergeant Thompson clenched his fists. As a professional soldier, he understood the warrior's code, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Learning about the Veltar's systematic enslavement of other species triggered every protective instinct he possessed. Crix, Martinez said carefully. Are there others like you? Other species being held here. The gray alien's eyes widened. Hundreds. Thousands. The Veltar Empire spans many worlds. They take the strong from each, leave the weak to serve as breeding stock for future harvests. Corporal Park, who had been monitoring Veltar communications through a hijacked console, looked up with urgent news. Captain, I'm picking up transmissions from multiple other facilities. This isn't just one base, it's a network. And they're all reporting similar incidents to what happened here. Similar incidents? Martinez asked sharply. Other summoning operations. It looks like when they grabbed us, they triggered some kind of automatic protocol. They've been pulling beings from dozens of worlds simultaneously. The implications hit the humans like a physical blow. The Veltar hadn't just kidnapped them. They had conducted a massive raid across multiple star systems. Hundreds, possibly thousands of sentient beings had been ripped from their homes. Show me, Martinez ordered. Park brought up the translated communication logs. Reports flooded in from Veltar facilities across their empire. Successful acquisitions from primitive worlds, new slave populations being processed, resources being allocated for integration procedures. But buried among the routine reports were a few anomalies. Facilities reporting equipment failures, communication blackouts, unexpected resistance from newly acquired subjects. Look at this one. Park highlighted a transmission from a facility designated as Harvest Station Zeta. The message read, Urgent assistance required. Acquired specimens showing unprecedented combat capability. They have somehow weaponized our own technology against us. Requesting immediate military support. Dr. Vasquez looked up from treating Crix. They didn't just grab humans, did they? They grabbed warriors from multiple species simultaneously. Martinez smiled grimly. And, apparently, we're not the only ones who don't like being kidnapped. Crix struggled to sit up, his gray features showing something the humans hadn't expected. Hope. You speak of fighting the Veltar? Truly? Not just escape, but combat. Crix, where I come from, we have a saying, Thompson told him. Nobody fights alone. If the Veltar wanted a war, they're going to get one. But, not the kind they expected. The gray alien stared at the sergeant in amazement. You would fight for other species? For slaves you do not know. That's what soldiers do, Martinez replied simply. We protect those who can't protect themselves. And we punish those who hurt innocents. She turned to address her team. New mission parameters, people. We're not just going home, we're shutting this operation down. All of it. Private Williams, who had been documenting everything with military precision, raised a concern. Captain, with respect, we're 37 people against an interstellar empire. The tactical challenges are significant. True, Martinez agreed. But we're not just 37 people. We're 37 humans. And, according to these communications, we're not alone. The Veltar just conducted a galaxy-wide draft, and it looks like they picked up some very upset warriors. Chun grinned as he studied the facility schematics he had pulled from the maintenance systems. Plus, these purple idiots just gave us access to technology that's centuries ahead of Earth standard. Their power systems, their manufacturing capabilities, their transportation networks, it's all here for the taking. Park had been quietly monitoring more communications. Captain, there's something else. The Veltar have been tracking something they call the Korthak Empire. Apparently, They're in the middle of a massive war. Crix's eyes flashed with emotion. The Korthak. Yes, they fight the Veltar across 12 sectors. But they are cruel. Raiders and slavers themselves, though different from the Veltar. Both empires feast on smaller worlds. Martinez processed this information with the strategic mindset of a career officer. A three-way war was developing, with the humans and other recently captured species caught in the middle. But that also represented opportunity. Enemy of my enemy, she murmured. Dr. Vasquez finished bandaging Crix's wounds and helped him to his feet. Can you walk? We need to find the other prisoners. I know the way, Crix replied eagerly. But the mind chains, how do you plan to break them? The others cannot resist as you do. Sergeant Thompson held up a small device he had taken from one of the fallen Veltar guards. What's this thing? Crix examined it carefully. Control collar. Used to reinforce the mental bindings. All slaves wear them. And if we remove them? Death. They are connected to our life force. Remove them incorrectly, and the slave dies. Dr. Vasquez examined the device with professional interest. Unless you know exactly how they work. Crix, I'm a doctor. If you can explain the mechanism, I might be able to find a safe way to remove these. The alien looked at her with growing wonder. On my world, healers are sacred. You would risk yourself to free strangers. It's what we do, she replied simply. As the team prepared to move deeper into the facility, Park intercepted another priority transmission. This one was different, an emergency broadcast to all Veltar military forces. Captain, you need to hear this, Park said urgently. The translated message was chilling. All units, code Crimson authorization. Newly acquired specimens designated as extreme threat entities. Standard integration protocols have failed across multiple facilities. These beings appear to possess natural resistance to mental conditioning and exceptional combat capability. Termination of all acquired specimens is authorized to prevent facility compromises. Repeat, kill all new arrivals immediately. The humans stared at the message in cold rage. The Veltar had just signed the death warrant for thousands of innocent beings across their empire. Well, Martinez said with deadly calm, that settles it. They want to play for keeps? We'll show them what that actually means. She turned to address her team and their new alien ally. Mission is now full offensive operations. We're going to free every prisoner in this facility, capture or destroy their military assets, and then we're going to teach this empire what happens when you threaten American soldiers and their allies. Crix stared at them in amazement. 37 beings against the Veltar Empire? This is madness. Thompson checked his rifle and grinned at the alien. No, Crix, this is humanity. And you're about to learn why nobody in the galaxy ever wants to fight humans when we're truly angry. The team began moving through the maintenance tunnels with renewed purpose. Behind them, Veltar security forces were flooding the facility, searching for the escaped specimens. But the humans had vanished into the infrastructure like smoke, carrying with them something the Veltar had never faced before, a species that viewed impossible odds as a personal challenge. In the depths of the facility, thousands of enslaved beings from dozens of worlds waited in holding cells, their minds clouded by alien technology. They had no idea that their liberation was coming in the form of a small group of very angry humans who had just declared war on an interstellar empire. Above them, Veltar commanders struggled to understand how their perfect summoning operation had turned into a nightmare. Their reports to the overseers grew increasingly frantic as facility after facility reported similar problems. The humans were adapting to alien technology at impossible speed. They were coordinating with other resistance groups. Most terrifyingly, they seemed to be actively seeking out the most dangerous challenges rather than trying to escape. High Magister Zephyros, his purple robe still singed from the crystal chamber explosion, stood in the emergency command center, trying to explain to his superiors how 37 primitive beings had dismantled thousands of years of careful planning in less than 6 hours. They fight like demons, he reported, his voice shaking. But with the tactics of gods. They turn our own technology against us, rally other species to rebellion, and show no fear whatsoever of death. The overseer's response was predictable. Then, kill them all. Immediately. But As alarms continued to wail throughout the facility and reports of prisoner escapes flooded in, Zephyros began to suspect it might already be too late. The humans weren't just escaping. They were actively dismantling the facility from within, piece by piece. And, according to the intercepted communications, they had somehow made contact with resistance groups throughout the Empire. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when humanity decided that somewhere was worth fighting for. In the deepest levels of the facility, Captain Martinez smiled grimly as she watched Dr. Vasquez successfully remove the first control collar from a grateful alien prisoner. Around them, dozens of freed beings from multiple species were organizing into combat units under human leadership. The Veltar had wanted warriors for their empire. They had gotten their wish. But the warriors they had summoned served only one cause now: freedom. And humanity had just taught an entire galaxy that freedom was worth any price. 3 days after the initial summoning disaster, the Veltar facility designated as Research Station Prime had become an armed fortress under siege. But the attackers weren't outside the walls. They were everywhere inside, moving through the facility like a virus that corrupted everything it touched. Captain Martinez crouched in what had once been the station's central processing center, now converted into a command post for the growing rebellion. Around her, beings from 17 different species worked together with a coordination that should have been impossible. The humans had done more than free prisoners. They had created an army. Dr. Vasquez had successfully developed a technique for safely removing Veltar control collars, working with alien medics from 6 different worlds to adapt the procedure for various species' physiologies. Her medical station had become a symbol of hope throughout the facility, as newly freed prisoners regained their free will for the first time in years. Status report, Martinez called out. Sergeant Thompson looked up from a tactical display cobbled together from Veltar technology and human ingenuity. We've secured 70% of the facility. Enemy forces are concentrated in the upper command levels and the main armory. They're trying to call for reinforcement, but Chun has been jamming their long-range communications. The demolitions expert grinned from his position at a jury-rigged electronic station. Their quantum communication array is a thing of beauty, Captain. Too bad it's currently broadcasting nothing but Earth's greatest rock music hits on repeat to every Veltar facility in this sector. Crix approached the command group, now wearing improvised armor made from Veltar materials. The gray-skinned alien had become one of their most valuable allies, serving as both a translator and liaison with the other freed species. The Mordak hunting pack reports success in the engineering section. The Veltar power grid is now under our control. Martinez nodded approvingly. The freed aliens had adapted to human tactics with remarkable speed, probably because most of them came from warrior cultures themselves. The Veltar's preference for summoning strong specimens had backfired spectacularly. Corporal Park, who had become their unofficial intelligence chief, highlighted several points on her displays. Captain, I've been analyzing the communications we've intercepted from other facilities. The situation is bigger than we thought. She brought up a galactic map showing the extent of the Veltar Empire. Red dots marked known facility locations, while pulsing indicators showed active distress signals. 47 facilities across 12 star systems are reporting integration failures, Park continued. The Veltar conducted their largest summoning operation in history, and it's backfiring everywhere. Species that have been enslaved for generations are using the chaos to stage uprisings. Dr. Vasquez looked up from where she was training alien medics in collar removal techniques. How many prisoners are we talking about across all facilities? Conservative estimate? 500,000 sentient beings from over 100 different worlds. The numbers hung in the air like a challenge. 500,000 enslaved beings, and the humans had inadvertently triggered their galaxy-wide awakening. Martinez felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She had led her people into many impossible situations, but nothing quite like this. Still, the principles remained the same. Protect the innocent, defeat the enemy, complete the mission. What about the Korthak Empire? She asked. Any intelligence on their response to all this chaos? Crix's expression grew troubled. The Korthak are complicated. They fight the Veltar, yes, but they are conquerors themselves. They may see this upheaval as an opportunity to expand their own territory. A new voice interrupted the briefing. Actually, human leader, the Korthak situation is more interesting than you might expect. Everyone turned to see a tall, reptilian being approaching the command group. Unlike the other freed prisoners, this alien wore the tattered remains of what appeared to be a military uniform, and carried himself with obvious authority. "I am War Commander Thaxos of the Korthak 4th Fleet," the being announced. "Former prisoner of this facility, recently freed by your remarkable collar removal technique." Thompson's hand moved instinctively toward his weapon, but Martinez held up a restraining gesture. "War Commander, I assume you have something important to tell us." Thaxos nodded respectfully. "I was captured during a deep reconnaissance mission 6 months ago. Before my capture, I was investigating reports of a new species that had begun complicating Korthak expansion plans." "Let me guess," Martinez said dryly. "Humans." "Precisely. Your species has been active in this galaxy for several years, though apparently without official contact with either the Veltar or Korthak empires. Small groups, highly aggressive, interfering with both sides' operations." Park leaned forward with interest. "What kind of interference?" "Freeing slaves, disrupting raids, destroying military installations. Your people seem to have an irrational attachment to protecting primitive civilizations from conquest." Martinez felt a surge of pride. Apparently, other human groups had made it to the galaxy ahead of them and were already making a difference. "Where are these other humans based?" "Unknown. They appear and disappear like ghosts, strike hard and fast, then vanish. Both empires have designated them as priority targets, but no one has managed to capture or track them successfully." Thaxos paused, his reptilian features showing something that might have been respect. "Until today, I thought they were simply well-trained raiders. But after witnessing your tactics here, I believe they may be something more dangerous. An advanced force." The implications sank in. Humanity wasn't just represented by the 37 people in this room. There were other human groups active across the galaxy, and they had apparently been preparing for something bigger. Chun looked up from his electronics station with a grim smile. "Captain, I just broke through their command encryption. You're going to want to see this." He projected a series of intercepted Veltar communications onto the main display. The messages revealed the full scope of the Empire's panic as reports flooded in from across their territory. "Research Station Beta, complete facility lockdown. Prisoners have somehow gained control of the quantum manufacturing systems and are producing weapons of unknown design. Harvesting Outpost Gamma, request immediate evacuation. The acquired specimens have rallied the existing slave populations and declared something called a Geneva Convention violation. They are systematically destroying all interrogation equipment. Primary command facility, emergency session called. The acquired warriors appear to be using our own communication networks to coordinate resistance across multiple star systems." "How is this possible?" Martinez studied the reports with professional interest. Wherever humans had been summoned, they were having the same effect, turning enslaved populations into organized resistance movements and adapting alien technology to their own purposes. But the most interesting report was the most recent one. Unknown vessels detected entering Veltar space. Configuration matches reported human ghost ship profiles. Recommend full fleet mobilization. Dr. Vasquez voiced what everyone was thinking. "Reinforcements?" "Maybe," Martinez replied. "Or maybe we just became the signal they've been waiting for." Thaxos stepped forward, his expression serious. "Human leader, I must tell you something important. The Korthak Empire's military doctrine recognizes only one law: strength. Your actions here have demonstrated a level of tactical capability that demands respect." He paused, then continued with formal precision. "I am authorized to offer you and your warriors a place of honor in the Korthak fleet. Join us in conquering the Veltar and share in the spoils of victory." The humans exchanged glances. Thompson spoke for all of them. "Thanks, but we don't conquer. We liberate." "But surely you understand the realities of galactic politics," Thaxos pressed. "The strong rule, the weak serve. This is the natural order." Martinez looked at the war commander with the steady gaze she reserved for particularly dense politicians. "Thaxos, Let me explain something about human philosophy. We believe that the strong exist to protect the weak, not rule them, not exploit them, protect them. That is inefficient, Thaxos replied, clearly struggling with the concept. Maybe, but it's what makes us human. Crix, who had been listening to this exchange with growing excitement, stepped forward. War Commander, with respect, perhaps efficiency is not the most important measure of a civilization's worth. Other freed aliens began gathering around the command group, drawn by the discussion. Representatives from dozens of species, all of whom had experienced the reality of efficient governance under the Veltar. A small, bird-like being that Martinez had learned was called a Churi spoke up in a voice like musical chimes. The humans freed us not for gain, but because slavery was wrong. This is a new concept to many, but perhaps it is a better way. More voices joined in, a growing chorus of freed slaves who had discovered that there were alternatives to the endless cycle of conquest and submission that had dominated galactic civilization for millennia. Thaxos looked around at the gathering crowd with something like confusion. You would reject the offer of strength? Of power? We would reject the offer of becoming oppressors ourselves, Martinez replied firmly. But that doesn't mean we can't work together against common enemies. She turned to address the growing assembly of freed beings. Everyone listen up. We've started something here that's bigger than any of us. The choice we make now will determine what happens next, not just for us, but for every enslaved being in this galaxy. The crowd grew silent, hanging on her words. We can try to escape and save ourselves, leaving everyone else to their fate. Or we can finish what we started. Free every prisoner, destroy every facility, and show this galaxy that slavery is no longer acceptable. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. These were beings who had lost their homes, their families, their freedom. The humans were offering them something more valuable than revenge. They were offering them purpose. But, understand, Martinez continued, this won't be easy. We're talking about a war against two interstellar empires. The odds are impossible. Many of us won't survive. Crix stepped forward, his gray features set with determination. Captain Martinez, on my world, we have a saying. The storm that breaks the mountain starts with a single raindrop. Perhaps we are that raindrop. Cheers erupted from the crowd, not the desperate cries of escaped slaves, but the battle roar of warriors who had found a cause worth dying for. Thaxos watched this display with growing amazement. Incredible. You have turned slaves into soldiers with nothing more than hope. Hope and training, Thompson corrected with a grin. We've got 3 days to turn this crowd into a fighting force before Veltar reinforcements arrive. Good thing humans are excellent teachers. As the crowd began to disperse, organizing themselves into training groups under human supervision, Martinez pulled Thaxos aside for a private conversation. War Commander, I meant what I said about working together. The Korthak military obviously has resources we could use. What are you proposing? An alliance. Not conquest, liberation. Help us free the prisoners throughout both empires. And we'll help you fight a cleaner kind of war. One where victory doesn't require enslaving the defeated. Thaxos considered this carefully. You would trust me? A representative of an empire that has conquered dozens of worlds. I'll trust you to be what you choose to be, Martinez replied. Right now, you have a chance to be remembered as the Korthak commander who helped end galactic slavery. Or you can go back to business as usual. Your choice. The war commander stared at her for a long moment, then slowly nodded. Perhaps it is time for the Korthak to learn new ways of warfare. As alarms began sounding throughout the facility, indicating the approach of Veltar reinforcement fleets, Martinez smiled grimly. The real war was about to begin. But, for the first time since their arrival, she felt genuinely optimistic about their chances. They had allies, they had purpose, and they had something the galaxy's empires had forgotten existed, the unshakable belief that freedom was worth any price. The Veltar and Korthak were about to learn that humans weren't just another warrior species to be conquered or recruited. They were something new, a force that fought not for territory or resources, but for principles that couldn't be negotiated away. And they were very, very good at making others believe in those principles too. The Veltar reinforcement fleet arrived expecting to find a containment situation. A few escaped prisoners hiding in maintenance tunnels, easily suppressed by overwhelming force. Instead, they found Research Station Prime transformed into a fortress bristling with improvised weapons and defended by a multi-species army that fought with tactical precision they had never encountered before. Admiral Zarthok commanded the relief force from his flagship, the Crimson Dominance. As his fleet of 12 heavy cruisers approached the station, he reviewed the increasingly frantic reports from the facility below. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the station's defensive systems appear to be under enemy control. They're targeting us with our own weapons." Zarthok watched in growing disbelief as the station's massive energy cannons, weapons designed to defend against Korthak raids, swiveled to track his approaching ships. Impossible. Those systems require Veltar biometric authorization. "Sir, sensors indicate significant modifications to the station structure. It appears the prisoners have been building something." On the main display, detailed scans revealed the shocking truth. The rebels hadn't just taken control of the station, they had completely redesigned it. New weapon emplacements had been constructed using materials cannibalized from throughout the facility. Hangar bays had been modified to launch improvised fighter craft. Most disturbing of all, the station's manufacturing centers were operating at maximum capacity, producing equipment of unknown design. "What are they building?" Zarthok demanded. His answer came in the form of a communication from the station itself. The view screen flickered to life, revealing Captain Martinez standing in what had once been the Veltar Command Center. Behind her, aliens from dozens of species worked at control stations with evident purpose. "Admiral Zarthok," Martinez said calmly, somehow knowing his name despite never having met him. "I'm Captain Sarah Martinez, commanding the Free Station Liberation Force. You are ordered to withdraw from this system immediately." The Admiral stared at her in shock. No prisoner had ever addressed a Veltar officer as an equal. The mental conditioning made such defiance literally impossible. "You dare make demands of the Veltar Empire?" he sputtered. "You are slaves. Property. You will return to your cells immediately or face destruction." Martinez's expression didn't change. "Admiral, let me explain something. We're not slaves. We're humans. And humans don't surrender to bullies." She gestured to something off-screen, and suddenly, the tactical display lit up with targeting solutions as the station's weapons locked onto his fleet. "You have 60 seconds to begin withdrawal, or we'll demonstrate why kidnapping humans was the worst mistake your empire ever made." Zarthok cut the transmission and turned to his tactical officer. "All ships, open fire. Destroy that station immediately." The Veltar fleet unleashed its full firepower, enough energy to vaporize a small moon. But the station's shields held, reinforced by modifications that shouldn't have been possible with available materials. "Sir," his sensor officer reported in amazement, "their shield harmonics are... How is this possible? They're using our own weapons' frequencies against us, creating interference patterns that deflect most of our firepower." Before Zarthok could respond, the station returned fire. But instead of the predictable energy beams he expected, something entirely different launched from the improvised weapon ports. A swarm of small, fast-moving objects that his sensors couldn't quite classify. "Incoming projectiles," his tactical officer announced. "Configuration unknown." "There, sir, they appear to be modified maintenance pods." Sergeant Chen's voice echoed across the combat frequency, broadcast from one of the attacking pods. "Veltar Fleet, this is Demolition Specialist Chun of the Free Station Liberation Force. You picked the wrong species to mess with. Fire in the hole." The maintenance pods, loaded with improvised explosives and piloted by volunteers from multiple species, struck the Veltar ships with devastating effect. But this wasn't a suicide attack. Each pod was equipped with escape systems that allowed the pilots to eject before impact. "They're using our own technology against us," Zarthok breathed in horror as one of his cruisers lost shields and began listing to starboard. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for generations to come, if any military academies survived what was happening to galactic civilization. The humans had done more than adapt Veltar technology. They had revolutionized it, combining advanced alien engineering with tactical innovations that came from a species shaped by millennia of constant warfare. But the most shocking development came when the station's long-range sensors detected new contacts entering the system, ships with configurations that matched none of the known fleets in the galaxy. "Admiral," his communications officer announced, "we're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessels. They're human." On the main screen, a new figure appeared, a grizzled man wearing what was unmistakably a military uniform, but of a design that predated any known human presence in the galaxy. "Veltar Fleet, this is Admiral Chen Wei of the Human Liberation Navy. You are ordered to cease hostile actions against our people immediately." Zarthok stared at the transmission in growing horror. "Human Liberation Navy? How many of you are there?" Admiral Chen's expression was coldly professional. "Enough. Captain Martinez, Sitrep." Martinez appeared on a split screen, her command center now clearly visible as a sophisticated military operation. "Admiral Chun, good to see you. Station is secure, approximately 1,500 liberated beings organized and trained. Enemy fleet appears to be having second thoughts. Outstanding work, Captain. Fleet disposition, 47 ships, and closing, sir. Full liberation protocols are authorized." Zarthok watched in growing disbelief as his supposedly overwhelming advantage evaporated before his eyes. The human fleet that emerged from hyperspace wasn't just larger than his own. The ships themselves were clearly more advanced, incorporating technologies he couldn't identify. "Admiral," his tactical officer whispered urgently, "recommend immediate withdrawal. Analysis of their ship configurations suggests weapons capabilities far exceeding our own." But Zarthok was a Veltar admiral, trained from birth in the superiority of his species. The idea of retreating from primitives was inconceivable. "All ships, full attack formation. Show these upstarts the power of the Veltar Empire." What followed was less a battle than a demonstration. The human fleet moved with a coordination that seemed almost supernatural, their ships working together in patterns that maximized their effectiveness while minimizing casualties. They didn't simply destroy the Veltar fleet, they dismantled it with surgical precision, disabling weapons and engines while leaving life support intact. Within 30 minutes, the entire Veltar force was adrift and helpless. Admiral Chen's voice came over the communication system, broadcasting to both the disabled fleet and the liberated station. "Veltar personnel, you are now prisoners of war under the protection of the Terran Convention for the Humane Treatment of Captured Personnel. You will be treated with dignity and respect, provided medical care is needed, and repatriated to your own people when hostilities conclude." Zarthok stared at his dead control panels in confusion. "Terran Convention? What is this nonsense?" Martinez appeared on his screen, her expression showing something like pity. "Admiral, your people have been conducting interstellar warfare for thousands of years, but you've never learned the most basic rules of civilized conflict. We're going to teach you." Over the next several hours, Zarthok watched in amazement as human medical teams boarded his ships to treat wounded Veltar personnel. The prisoners were processed with bureaucratic efficiency, documented, and assigned quarters that were actually more comfortable than their original accommodations. Most shocking of all, the humans actually meant what they said about dignified treatment. No interrogation, no torture, no summary executions. The Veltar prisoners were simply cared for. Dr. Vasquez, now bearing the rank insignia of a Terran Liberation Force medical commander, personally oversaw the medical care of wounded Veltar personnel. When she arrived on Zarthok's flagship, the Admiral couldn't contain his confusion. "Why are you helping us?" he demanded. "We are your enemies. You should execute us or enslave us as we would do to you." Dr. Vasquez looked at him with genuine sadness. "Admiral, that's exactly the problem. For thousands of years, galactic civilization has been trapped in a cycle of conquest and revenge. Someone has to break that cycle. But we are Veltar. We enslaved your people. We destroyed your hopes of returning home." "Actually," Dr. Vasquez said with a slight smile, "you didn't. You brought us exactly where we needed to be." She gestured toward the viewports, where Zarthok could see the liberated station now serving as a hub of activity. Ships from dozens of species were arriving, freed slaves returning to reclaim their peoples, former enemies working together, a galactic community organizing around principles of cooperation rather than domination. Admiral, humanity spent thousands of years learning how to end conflicts without destroying civilizations. We're going to teach the galaxy those same lessons. As if to prove her point, a new transmission arrived from the Korthak Empire. War Commander Thaxos appeared on screen, but his appearance had changed dramatically. Instead of the predatory military uniform he had worn as a prisoner, he now bore the insignia of what appeared to be a joint command structure. Admiral Chun, Thaxos reported formally. The Korthak Fourth Fleet has successfully negotiated ceasefire agreements with rebel forces in the Zeta Sector. Preliminary talks for a comprehensive peace treaty are scheduled to begin in 72 hours. Admiral Chun nodded approvingly. Excellent work, Commander. Any resistance from traditional elements? Some, but declining rapidly. It appears that many Korthak warriors prefer honorable combat to the endless cycle of raiding and enslaving. When offered the opportunity to fight for liberation rather than conquest, most have chosen to join the new alliance. Zarthok stared at this exchange in growing disbelief. The Korthak are working with you? But they are our enemies. They were your enemies, Martinez corrected, appearing on the communication link. Now they're our allies, along with about 50 other species that are tired of being caught between two empires. Admiral Chun addressed the captured Veltar commander directly. Admiral Zarthok, you have a choice to make. Your empire is currently facing rebellions on 47 worlds, with more joining the Liberation Alliance every day. Your military forces are scattered across 12 sectors, trying to contain uprisings that grow stronger with each battle. He paused, letting the implications sink in. You can continue fighting a war you cannot win, watching your empire tear itself apart. Or you can join the alliance and help build something better. You expect me to betray my own people? I expect you to save them, Chen replied. Admiral, your empire is dying. The question is whether it dies in fire and chaos, or transforms into something that can actually survive in a galaxy where slavery is no longer tolerated. Zarthok looked around his disabled command center, then at the viewports showing the transformed station where former slaves and former enemies worked together with impossible harmony. Everything he had believed about galactic civilization was crumbling before his eyes. What would you have me do? Martinez smiled, and for the first time since his capture, Zarthok saw something other than military efficiency in her expression. He saw hope. Help us contact the Veltar High Council, she said. It's time to negotiate the future of the galaxy. As communication channels opened across space, carrying unprecedented messages of cooperation and peace, the galactic map began to change. Red zones marking conflict areas were slowly being replaced by green indicators showing alliance territories. The humans hadn't just escaped their captivity. They had triggered a revolution that was reshaping the entire galaxy. And they were just getting started. In the depths of space, more human ships continued to arrive, each carrying technologies and ideas that promised to transform not just military tactics, but the very concept of what galactic civilization could become. The Veltar had tried to summon servants. Instead, they had brought teachers who were very good at showing the galaxy that there were better ways to live than the endless cycle of conquest and submission that had dominated for millennia. And the first lesson in the curriculum was simple: nobody fights alone. 6 months after the first summoning disaster, the Veltar High Council convened an emergency session aboard their most secure fortress station, hidden in the dark space between star systems. The council chamber, once filled with the confident purple forms of galactic overlords, now housed a collection of increasingly desperate beings facing the collapse of their ancient empire. High Magister Zephyros, his once pristine robes now bearing the scars of multiple assassination attempts by his own people, addressed the assembly with barely contained panic. Honored counselors, the situation continues to deteriorate. 47 core worlds have declared independence and joined the Liberation Alliance. Our slave populations across 12 sectors have organized into effective military forces under human leadership. Most catastrophically, the Korthak Empire has not only ceased hostilities against us, they have joined the alliance. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. The idea that their ancient enemies would ally with escaped slaves was almost incomprehensible to the Veltar mindset. "How is this possible?" demanded Counselor Vextar, her purple skin flushed with rage. "The Korthak are raiders. Conquerors. They should be seizing this opportunity to destroy us completely." Zephyros activated a holographic display showing the current galactic situation. Where once a neat division had existed between Veltar purple and Korthak red territories, a new color now dominated the map, the green of the Liberation Alliance, spreading like a virus across known space. The humans have introduced concepts that neither empire was prepared to counter, Zephyros explained grimly. They call it diplomacy backed by strength. They offer former enemies equal partnership in exchange for abandoning conquest-based expansion. Many species find this appealing. "Preposterous," snarled Supreme Counselor Malrath. "Galactic civilization is built on natural hierarchy. The strong rule, the weak serve. This is universal law." "Apparently not," Zephyros replied quietly. "The humans operate under different principles. They view strength as a responsibility to protect rather than a license to dominate." The chamber erupted in angry voices, but the argument was interrupted by an urgent communication from their perimeter sensors. "High Council." The sensor operator's voice crackled with fear. "Unknown vessels approaching. Configuration matches human liberation fleet profiles." Panic filled the chamber. This fortress station was supposed to be impossible to find, hidden using the most advanced stealth technology the Veltar possessed. "Impossible," Malrath declared. "Our location is classified beyond any security level." "How could primitives?" The main display activated, revealing a communication from the approaching ships. Captain Martinez appeared on screen, but her appearance had changed dramatically over the past months. She now wore the uniform of a Liberation Alliance admiral, her insignia indicating command authority over multi-species forces. Behind her stood representatives from dozens of different worlds, not as subordinates, but as equals in a command structure that somehow functioned despite incorporating wildly different species and cultures. "Veltar High Council," Martinez said formally. "I am Admiral Martinez of the Liberation Alliance fleet. We are here to offer you one final opportunity for peaceful resolution to this conflict." Malrath rose to his full height, his purple skin darkening with fury. "How dare you address the High Council as an equal? You are property. Slaves. We will never negotiate with." "Supreme Counselor," Martinez interrupted calmly. "You have approximately 15 minutes before our fleet arrives in weapons range. I suggest you use that time to reconsider your position." A new figure moved into view beside Martinez. Admiral Zarthok, the former Veltar fleet commander who had been captured at Research Station Prime. But instead of the defeated prisoner they expected to see, he appeared confident and different somehow. "High Council," Zarthok said respectfully. "I am here to report that the human claims of superior military capability are accurate. I have spent 6 months observing their methods, and I can state definitively that continued resistance is futile." "Traitor!" Vextar screamed. "You betray your own species for alien masters." Zarthok's expression remained calm. "Counselor, I have not been enslaved or brainwashed. I have been educated. There are better ways to organize galactic civilization than endless conquest and domination." "Impossible, is it?" Zarthok activated his own holographic display, showing detailed analyses of Liberation Alliance territories. Former Veltar worlds that joined the Alliance voluntarily now show productivity increases of 300%. Crime has virtually disappeared. Interspecies conflict has been replaced by cooperative development programs. He paused, letting the data sink in. "The humans haven't just offered us military defeat, they've offered us prosperity." Malrath stared at the displays in shock. Everything he had been taught about galactic civilization suggested that such cooperation was impossible. Yet the evidence was undeniable. Martinez stepped forward. "Supreme Counselor, the Liberation Alliance isn't interested in destroying the Veltar. We're interested in ending the system that makes empires like yours necessary." "What are you proposing?" "Full integration into the Alliance structure. Veltar worlds would maintain their sovereignty and cultural identity, but slavery and conquest would end permanently." In exchange, you gain access to technologies and resources that will make your people more prosperous than they've ever been. Another figure joined the communication, War Commander Thaxos, now bearing the rank of Alliance Strategic Coordinator. High Council, the Korthak military has spent the past 6 months learning human tactical principles. Our losses in conventional warfare have decreased by 90%, while our effectiveness in defensive operations has tripled. You see, Martinez continued, the humans didn't just bring military superiority, they brought better ideas. Concepts that benefit everyone who adopts them. Counselor Zephyros, who had been quietly studying the tactical displays, spoke up with obvious reluctance. Admiral Martinez, what guarantees could you offer regarding Veltar cultural autonomy? Our people have governed themselves for 10,000 years. The same guarantees we've offered every other species in the Alliance, Martinez replied. Complete cultural freedom, as long as your practices don't involve enslaving or conquering other species. Representative government with proportional input into Alliance decisions. Economic partnership that benefits all members. Dr. Vasquez appeared on the communication, now bearing the insignia of Alliance Medical Coordinator. High Council, perhaps you'd be interested to know that former Veltar slaves have specifically requested that their former masters receive the same medical and educational benefits as all Alliance citizens. They harbor no desire for revenge. This statement sent shockwaves through the council chamber. The idea that former slaves would actively seek to benefit their captors contradicted everything the Veltar understood about power relationships. Why? Malrath asked, genuinely confused. We enslaved them, tortured them. Why would they show us mercy? Because that's what civilization looks like, Martinez replied simply. When you're strong enough to help others instead of needing to dominate them. The communication was interrupted by proximity alerts as the human fleet arrived at weapons range. But, instead of immediately opening fire, the ships took defensive positions and waited. High Council, Admiral Chin's voice joined the communication from the fleet flagship. You have our complete tactical situation displayed before you. We have overwhelming force advantage and could destroy the station within minutes. Instead, we're offering you time to make a choice. Malrath looked at his tactical officers. Analysis. The response was whispered, but audible. Sir, their fleet composition indicates firepower approximately 15 times our defensive capabilities. Resistance would achieve nothing except casualties. So we surrender? No, Martinez corrected. You join. There's a difference. Admiral Chun activated a new holographic display showing the proposed alliance integration plan. Supreme Counselor, the transformation process typically takes 18 months. Former Empire worlds receive immediate economic assistance, technological upgrades, and educational programs. Military forces are retrained for defensive rather than aggressive operations. Political structures transition to representative democracy with appropriate cultural modifications. And the results? Zephyros asked. War Commander Thaxos responded with obvious pride. The Korthak integration is nearly complete. Our people report higher satisfaction levels than at any point in recorded history. We're no longer raiders. We're explorers and defenders. It's better than we expected. Dr. Vasquez added, medical outcomes across Alliance territories have improved dramatically. When people don't live in constant fear of conquest or enslavement, their health and productivity improve exponentially. Malrath stared at the assembled representatives of species that had once been enemies or slaves, now working together with obvious mutual respect. Everything he had believed about the nature of power was being challenged by the simple evidence before his eyes. This is madness, he said weakly. Galactic civilization cannot function without hierarchy, without the strong ruling the weak. Captain Martinez smiled sadly. Supreme Counselor, humanity spent thousands of years believing the same thing. We fought endless wars, enslaved each other, conquered, and destroyed. But we learned something important along the way. What? The strongest civilization is the one that doesn't need to prove its strength by hurting others. Zarthok stepped forward. High Council, I've seen their homeworld through their historical records. Earth was once as divided and violent as our galaxy is now. They learned to cooperate out of necessity, because the alternative was self-destruction. And Now they're teaching the galaxy the same lessons, Thaxos added. The choice is simple: evolve or become extinct. The chamber fell silent as the weight of the decision settled on the council members. Outside the viewports, the Liberation Alliance fleet waited patiently, neither threatening nor retreating. Finally, Councillor Zephyros spoke. If we were to consider this proposal, what would be the first steps? Martinez's expression brightened. Immediate ceasefire across all territories. Liberation of remaining slave populations. Establishment of transition committees with alliance support. The process is gradual and voluntary. We're not interested in forced conversions. And Veltar military forces? Admiral Chun responded professionally, retrained and integrated into alliance defense networks. Many of your officers have excellent tactical skills. They just need to learn how to apply them constructively rather than aggressively. Dr. Vasquez added. Educational programs for civilian populations focus on expanded opportunities rather than forced changes. People adapt naturally when they see the benefits. Malrath looked around the chamber at his fellow council members, seeing the same mixture of fear and hope in their expressions. This is the most momentous decision in Veltar history. Yes, Martinez agreed. But it's not just about the Veltar. With your integration, the Liberation Alliance will encompass over 90% of known galactic civilization. We can finally end the age of empire and begin the age of cooperation. The Supreme Counselor took a deep breath, feeling the weight of 10,000 years of tradition and the promise of an uncertain but potentially better future. Very well, he said quietly. The Veltar High Council agrees to begin integration negotiations. Cheers erupted across the communication link as representatives from dozens of species celebrated the end of the galaxy's longest-running conflict. But Martinez's expression remained serious. Supreme Counselor, this is just the beginning. Building a better civilization is harder than destroying an old one. But I promise you this, humanity will be with you every step of the way. As the formalities of surrender and integration began, Zephyros approached Malrath privately. Supreme Counselor, do you truly believe this will work? The older Veltar looked out at the Alliance fleet, no longer threatening, but somehow even more impressive in their patient confidence. Zephyros, 6 months ago, 37 primitive beings destroyed our most secure facility and turned our greatest strength, our ability to summon warriors, into our greatest weakness. He paused, watching as Alliance ships began docking with their station in perfect formation. If they can accomplish that, perhaps they can accomplish anything. 1 year later, the former Veltar territories had been completely integrated into the Liberation Alliance. Slavery had been abolished throughout known space. Interspecies conflicts had been replaced by cooperative development projects that benefited everyone involved. And at the center of it all, humanity continued to do what they did best, teaching others that strength wasn't about domination, but about protection. That civilization wasn't about conquest, but about cooperation. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the best thing that can happen to a predator is meeting someone who teaches them how to be something better. The Veltar had tried to summon servants. Instead, they had summoned teachers who changed everything, not through force, but through the simple demonstration that there were better ways to live. And the galaxy would never be the same.